I've made a lot of mistakes in real estate, some small, some massive, and the worst part, I could have avoided most of them if I had known better. If you're thinking about investing in real estate or even buying your first home, my experiences could save you thousands of dollars and countless headaches. So today, I'm going to break down the biggest mistakes I made, how they hurt me financially, and what you can do to avoid them. Mistake number 1, rushing into a deal without proper research. One of my first real estate investments was a disaster, and it all started with me being in a hurry. I found what I thought was a great property. The numbers looked good on paper, and the seller was eager to close. Instead of taking my time, I rushed into it. I didn't research the neighborhood thoroughly, I didn't look into future development plans, and I didn't double-check the property's history. A few months later, I realized the area was in decline. What looked like a promising neighborhood was actually filled with foreclosed homes, increasing crime rates, and a lack of job opportunities. Within a year, my property value had dropped significantly, and I had no choice but to sell at a loss. Lesson learned: always do deep research. Look at property trends, talk to locals, check zoning laws, and see what's planned for the area in the next 5 to 10 years. Mistake number 2, underestimating repair costs. Another painful mistake I made was thinking that repairs and renovations wouldn't cost as much as they did. When I bought my first fixer-upper, I assumed I could handle most of the work on a tight budget. I was wrong. What seemed like minor cosmetic fixes turned into a money pit. A small leak in the roof turned out to be major water damage. Old wiring needed to be completely replaced. The foundation had issues I didn't notice during my walkthrough. The contractor I hired ended up charging way more than I expected, and I had no choice but to pay up because I was already into deep. Lesson learned: always overestimate renovation costs. If you think a renovation will cost $20,000, assume it'll be $30,000 or more. Get multiple quotes from contractors, and always have extra funds set aside for surprises. Mistake number 3, ignoring cash flow and only focusing on appreciation. At one point, I got caught up in the idea that property values always go up. I figured that as long as I bought in a hot market, I'd make a profit. So, I purchased a property that barely broke even on rental income, assuming appreciation would make up for it. That strategy backfired when the market cooled down. The property didn't appreciate as fast as I expected, and I was stuck with a house that barely covered its expenses. When unexpected repairs came up, I had to dip into my savings just to keep the property afloat. Mistake number 4, not having an emergency fund. Real estate investing comes with surprises, most of them expensive. In my early days, I didn't set aside enough for unexpected expenses, and it nearly wiped me out. One winter, a tenant called to tell me the heating system had failed. I hadn't planned for such a major expense, and replacing the system cost me several $1,000s. Since I had no emergency fund, I had to put the repairs on a high-interest credit card, which added even more financial pressure. Lesson learned: always have a reserve fund for each property. Experts recommend having at least 3-6 months worth of expenses set aside. Trust me, you'll need it. Mistake number 5, trusting the wrong people. In real estate, the people you work with can make or break your success. I learned this the hard way when I hired a property manager who turned out to be terrible at their job. They were slow to respond to tenant issues, failed to do proper tenant screenings, and didn't keep up with regular maintenance. I assumed they were doing their job, but by the time I realized how bad things were, the damage was already done. Tenants had moved out due to poor management, and I had to spend thousands to fix problems that should have been prevented. Lesson learned: always vet the people you work with, read reviews, ask for references, and check their track record before trusting them with your investment. Mistake number 6, buying without a clear exit strategy. One of the worst mistakes I made was buying a property without thinking about my exit strategy. I just assumed I'd sell it for a profit when I was ready. That didn't happen. When it came time to sell, the market had shifted, and there was little demand in my area. Since I hadn't considered other options like refinancing or turning the property into a rental, I ended up selling at a loss. Mistake number 7, letting emotions drive my decisions. One of the biggest financial mistakes I made was getting emotionally attached to a deal. I once fell in love with a house that had all the charm and character I wanted, but it wasn't a good investment. The numbers didn't make sense, but I convinced myself it was worth it. Real estate can be a powerful way to build wealth, but it's also full of pitfalls that can cost you thousands, sometimes even more. The mistakes I've shared today weren't just expensive lessons, they were wake-up calls that forced me to become a smarter investor. The good news: you don't have to make the same mistakes I did. You can learn from my experiences and avoid the costly errors that set me back. Before you invest in real estate, take your time. Do your research, run the numbers, and prepare for the unexpected. Don't rush into deals, don't underestimate expenses, and don't rely on appreciation alone. Build a solid foundation, surround yourself with trustworthy professionals, and always have a clear strategy.